your strength to do what is best for the good of Waterville. Lord God, as servants of your people, we pray that you grant us a share of your wisdom. Amen.
Thank you. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mrs. Bruno?
Here.
Mayor Brody?
Here.
Mr. Rosen? Mr. Pedro?
Here.
Mrs. Duncan?
Here. I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Rosick as he had a funeral this evening.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have our approval of our minutes from our regular council meeting dated January 22nd, 2018. We need a first and a second.
So moved.
Second. Are there any changes or comments?
Mayor, I just have one comment, and I don't know, I looked at it, but at our last meeting, we changed the schedule a little bit, and there was a citizen that made some comments at the end of the meeting. They weren't reflected, and I didn't know if that should be there or not.
Under other business? or-
Yes. Is my recollection correct? Specifically, Mr. Nagel addressed the council, and it mentioned that we were going to table one of the items on the agenda. I just want the record to reflect that he did speak at the end of the meeting.
Okay, we can amend it,
Please?
and we can have Melissa go back and check that for us too. So we have a motion and a second with that amendment to the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a very special presentation. We had the sad news last meeting that one of our longtime council members, Mr. Valton, will be leaving. So I think I'm gonna come down here because we have a couple things that we would like to give him.
Come on up, Jim.
You wanna come up here? Maybe the microphone. Mr. Valton, in recognition of your serving on council for 10 years, the city of Waterville is pleased to present this certificate to James D. Valton in recognition of 10 years of service on city council from 2008 to 2018. And we also have the Caruth, Waterville, Ohio, that we'd like to give you so you can think about us every other Monday. We thank you for your service. You did a fantastic job. Many years of service. Any words or anything from council? A few of them served with you a long time up there too. I'm sure Mr. Pedro has.
Thanks for walking away from me, abandoning me.
It's all your show now. Where's the microphone?
I enjoyed the entire experience. The city's changed a lot in the 10 years that I was on council. The water line construction, the development out where Kroger is, Route 24 bypass, the subdivisions. But really the city's kept, and going from a village to a city, but the city really kept kind of its small town atmosphere. And so I'm happy to see that that's surviving. And hopefully that continues to be the future for the city. I enjoyed the experience, and anybody who has an interest in serving the city, it's an excellent job. So I thank you for the opportunity.
I miss you, Mr. Valton. Just
First time in 10 years I get to leave the council meeting early.
Thank you to you and your family. Thank you very much. All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
may I?
Yes, you may. I was
Jim,
waiting.
before you leave, I want to thank you and your family. I know it's not always to be here every other Monday, and certainly thank you. You brought balance to the council, and we wish you well.
Thank you. Renee's trying to find me every other
much.
Good night.
Night.
All right, moving on to citizens' comments. We have one on the agenda, and then I have one citizen comment. So first I'll invite the citizen, Reagan Sawyer up. If you don't mind, Reagan, to the microphone, if you'll state your name and your address for the record.
Reagan Sawyer, 215 South River Road. So I've been here before, and I've been speaking about how important civilian oversight of the police is within a city. I've suggested creating this type of committee in Waterville, not in response to a tragedy like many towns, but as a proactive step in our city in line with the most current thinking on successful community and police interaction. I even stated the idea of this being the most boring committee with nothing to review would actually be a best case scenario. This suggestion has been met with a great deal of resistance. Claims that the mere existence of a civilian oversight committee would make Waterville seem like a bad place, and that my concerns about the lack of transparency within the department and the process of reporting misconduct to the source are unfounded. Yet I still believe that part of making Waterville safe is accountability within policing. Because I've stood up in a few public forums asking for this type of change, people have begun reaching out to me to tell stories of police interaction, both good and bad. So I stand in front of you tonight as the voice of another. An anonymous letter was delivered to my home, but before you disregard its statements, please know that its contents have been independently investigated and found to be truthful. And the situation was even more upsetting than what the letter detailed. Sexual harassment by a uniformed, on-duty Waterville police officer. Without face in our current process, they reached out to my family to seek justice. And now I ask you, is it time to consider a civilian oversight committee so that these truthful complaints, like the one that you have in front of all of you on council, can be reviewed, and that frightened or disenfranchised citizens of Waterville will know that they have a neutral place to be respected, to be heard, and have actions taken accordingly? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sawyer. Do I have any other citizens' comments before the one on the agenda? Yes, Mr. Nagel.
Matt Nagel, 8066 Trent Lock. I wanted to take a quick opportunity to offer to the council if they had any questions regarding the ordinance 01-18. I didn't want to go outside the parameters of the meeting agenda like I did the previous meeting. I did just want to offer, I did not ask for emergency consideration of the ordinance. So if there's any misnomer to that, that was not, did not originate with myself. But I did want to offer if there's any questions. Mr. Pedro did reach out to me after the last meeting. We had a conversation, and I've had a couple conversations with Mr. Bagdonis, but I didn't know if there was anything else that was needed of me for the consideration.
Thanks for that additional information. Do we have other comments or not from me? Yeah. Questions?
Good.
And I appreciate that. Sorry it went the other way. When Mr. Pedro asked for more time, we had already passed this part.
Yeah,
but
no.
yeah.
So I obviously I didn't mean to.
No, not at all. We should have explained that. Mr. Pedro, do you have any?
No, we good.
And
Questions
I'll
answered?
remain available if there's any discussion or questions later in the meeting. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and next on the agenda, I have another person with the natural resource, with Lucas Soil and Water Conservation District, a natural resource specialist, Jessica Wilbarger. Oh, if you don't mind, again, just state your name and with who you're with.
I'm Jessica Wilbarger with the Soil and Water Conservation District for Lucas County. Our office is in Maumee, Ohio. And I'm just here to provide some updates on an agricultural law that was passed in 2015 but is just now being implemented this winter. And if it's all right, I'm going to pass around a brief summary for the council. So I'm trying to reach out to every jurisdiction in Lucas County about Senate Bill 1, which was a Ohio state law passed in 2015 regarding restrictions on agricultural practices due to the harmful algal bloom in Lake Erie. It was passed through the state. However, there was a 2-year exemption for small and medium farms, which is most of Lucas County. So only now, now that 2017 has passed, is it likely to be enforced in this area. I gave a short summary to Senate Bill 1, what it actually does and why, and the overview. But I just wanted to share a little bit more context because it is likely that we'll shortly possibly be dealing with violations of the Senate bill in Lucas County. I know there's not a lot of farmland in the city of Waterville itself, but I think agriculture impacts everyone in Lucas County, and there are both opportunities to support agriculture and opportunities to make sure that the law is being followed in fairness to everybody for every citizen in Lucas County. Primarily, Senate Bill 1 specifies that farmers with more than 50 acres, which there are several in Lucas County, cannot spread manure or fertilizer under certain weather conditions. So not when the ground is frozen, not when it's saturated, and not when there's a whole lot of rain in the forecast. And there are specific parameters for that. Those conditions describe most of a winter in Lucas County, although there aren't any dates set to the law. And what that means is, whereas spreading fertilizer in winter was a pretty common practice before for farmers, mostly it's prohibited now. And that's been a big cultural change in the area, and it came about as a reaction to the harmful algal blooms in Lake Erie. And so the Conservation District works on a voluntary basis to get people adjusted to and used to implementing the new law. But we also investigate complaints of violations of the new law. We haven't had any complaints in Lucas County this winter, but there have been maybe a dozen in Northwest Ohio in general this winter. And you might remember from this summer, there were several complaints of manure spills that killed fish in Lake Erie streams and rivers. So we just want to get everybody up to date on the law, let you know that our contact information, our office in Maumee, we're open Monday through Friday, and we can be emailed or contacted by phone at any time. So just if you see something odd going on, maybe it's a fresh snowy day and somebody's out with their tractor on land and you wonder if that's okay, you can give our office a call anytime. Similarly, if we've had a fresh snow melt and you see something odd in a stream or river while you're walking, if there's discoloration or fish floating on the area, you can actually get a much faster response by calling the emergency manure spill line, which is provided in the brochure and also available on our website. That triggers a response within 24 hours by both the Department of Agriculture, our office, and the EPA. And the primary objective of that response is just to stop the problem. It doesn't immediately initiate penalties or send somebody to jail. Really, it's just an immediate way to address the problem, make sure that they can clean up the water before it does any more damage. I just wanted to present that information and give Waterville and the council an opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you. Jessica, does anybody have any questions? I appreciate the information. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time, and I'll leave a few copies of that brochure and our annual report on the table for everyone.
Great.
Thanks
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. Do I have any other citizen comments, which I did not receive a form for?
Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, we have some students here.
Yes.
And some Boy Scouts from Troop 101. Boy Scout, the ladies first. So if
Yes.
the mayor, you want to
Yes.
ask the students from Notre Dame Academy, they are dying to get up to that podium.
Would you like to come up to the podium? That way your teacher will know you were here and state your name, where you're from. They can watch this online. So.
Madison Bronder.
Giovanna Rudis. And Allison Bennett.
And you're all from Notre Dame. Yeah? And what are you here for?
Government hours.
Got any questions for us? Not yet? All right. Thanks for coming. Next, we have some scouts back there.
Hi, I'm Matthew Yoakum of Troop 101, as well as these people. I'm here working on my communications merit badge.
Nice.
I am Luke Yoakum, his brother, and I am also working on communications merit badge.
I'm Austin Sisler, and I'm working on citizenship in the community. So I basically have to listen to like anything that's going on in our city and just record it.
Nice.
I am Dave Sisler. I am a assistant scoutmaster for Troop 101. Surprised at the number of people that are here today, so it's a great turnout. We're just kind of introducing the scouts to some merit badges that they're taking about their local governments and things like that. So thank you for allowing us to join you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, next we have an executive session for consideration of a matter per Ohio Revised Code 121.22G4, reviewing our negotiations with public employees concerning compensation and other terms and conditions of their employment. So we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved?
Second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Pedro?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes. Thank you. And we will return shortly, and we will have further business.
So that's well, then that, I think I got the answer to my next question already. If some friends come from DC and, every year, somebody learned that, oh, you can from, yeah, July 4th, the week of July 4th, I know most of the all summer long, it's very hot. The children are having probably started coming in. Other snowbirds, poplars coming in and take it away from the house. Did you get the building email? Yeah, that's what it is. I know Ahmad loves the, remember Ahmad? Oh, no. He was.
Good, how you been? Did your son graduate?
He's graduated this
Nice. Business too? That's awesome.
All right, we need a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Ms. Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Pedro?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes. Thank you. We're going to move up Resolution 06-18, a resolution approving the collective bargaining agreement with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 20 bargaining unit and authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into said collective bargaining agreement. And we need a motion to take this off the table.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and next we need a motion to approve.
So moved?
second.
Is there any further discussion or questions?
Let me just hand it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we're gonna go back to staff reports, and we'll start with the administrator. Mr. Bagdonis.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members have a copy of my report, and unless there are questions, I don't have anything to add at this time. I'll have comments later on some other agenda-specific items.
Thank you. Any questions for the administrator? Next, we have our law director, Mr. Dombey.
No report tonight, Your Honor.
Next, we have our finance director, Mr. Gokenauer.
Evening. Council has my report for December 2017. We ended the month of December with an ending balance of $4,790,161. We had a investment income year to date at the end of December for 2017, $39,206. We also have in the report, we have RETA income tax reports for December 2017 and January 2018. For December, we ended the year with a total collection of $3,332,538. That was about approximately $28,355 more than we received in 2016. As we've mentioned throughout the year, it was about 3% less than what we originally anticipated that we were going to get for 2017. For January of 2018, the city received $320,776, and that was approximately $62,295 more than we received in 2017. We had a pretty good January, and if you notice from the report, it is actually the best January that we've had since 2014. On Report A of the RETA report for January, it starts at 2014 to the present, and it's actually the best we've ever had. I guess I would say that's due to a change in state law that fourth quarter estimated payments for the previous year now come due in January. So that kind of pumps up the January collection, where in the past it came in December. Every year, the Regional Income Tax Agency of Ohio, they have a Taxpayer Assistance Day, and it's being held in the village of Holland, and it's at the lodge at Strawberry Acres, which is on 950 South McCord Road, and that's on March 28th, and that runs from noon to 7 p.m., so area residents can go and get some help on their income tax, and we have that on Channel 5 and posted up at the front desk. Also like to invite anybody that wants to come to our Finance Committee meeting on Friday, February 16th at 7:30 a.m. And then lastly, on page 25 of your council packet is your annual reminder to file your 2017 financial disclosure statement, and that's due on May 15th of 2018.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gokenauer? Thank you very much. Next, we have our treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. As Mr. Gokenauer mentioned, the month of December is closed, and as you can see in my report, as he mentioned, we're at about $4.8 million approximately in investments, cash, etc. One primary thing happened in December that kind of impacts the balances as you look at the various funds, and that was the payment of the advance from the water sewer back to the capital fund in December. So when you look at those balances, you'll see one went up quite a bit, one went down quite a bit. So that's basically the primary reason for that looking a little skewed. The other thing I'd just like to point out, when you look at the bottom section where the balance of all funds, the first two columns in there, it looks a little deceiving because I think people forget that about 2 years ago we took out what were called bond anticipation notes of about $2.5 million to pay for the water line. That's been being paid down. We did that in anticipation of doing that. So you see the balances were relatively high at one point, and they just keep coming down. Again, nothing to be alarmed about. It's exactly what was expected. So as of the end of the year, we have a general fund balance of about $1,365,000, which is still very strong general fund balance for when the auditors come in here and take a look and we look at our new bonds and new notes for in the future. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for our treasurer? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have our police chief. Our filling in police chief, our lieutenant.
Good evening. You have the report. Along with that, I would say that the Kroger's grand reopening went extremely well. The manager was very thankful that we had officers up there all the time. They actually contracted some of our officers for traffic. There were no issues, no reported thefts, thankfully. So
it was crowded up there.
Yes, and I have to say the Anthony Wayne, I think it was their concert band or whatever, was just fabulous. I mean, that was awesome. I didn't even know Anthony Wayne had that particular type of a band. They were really great.
It was quite the event. Do we have any questions for the lieutenant? All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our fire chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and the visitors in the audience. I have submitted two reports, my monthly report for January of 2018 and my annual operational report of the fire department. I don't have anything to add to either of those, but I do have one note that I did hire 2 more part-timers and 1 pay-per-call during January. They've started to work already.
Good. Thank you. Any questions for the chief, Mr. Pedro?
Chief, I mentioned to you before the meeting that I had a chance to read your annual report, and it was well written. I do have some general things that I'd like to discuss now, but I'd like to make an appointment because I'd like to learn more about some of the detail, which is well laid out. But just a couple questions. On your annual, or your monthly report, I know you mentioned last meeting, and then your report, you met with the Director of Nursing, Executive Administrator of Heritage, Waterville, regarding response to our medic unit for the facility of non-emergency transports. Just curious, what was the outcome, and what's the measurable as a result of that meeting?
Okay. The cursory story to that is that we were getting calls for actually to transport patients for direct admits to the hospital. And we run an emergency service, not a private transport ambulance service. And that only takes away our service, it takes away our personnel, and it wears on them too. I mean, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't have people, not available, or middle of the night, and it's a true emergency, and no, he's going to be a direct admit. Well, I said, we got to stop this because they can go by private ambulance. And the problem was they didn't want to wait for a private ambulance. They may have to wait 2 hours for a private ambulance. So just call 911 and they'll take them right away. So I got my point across, and so far it's settled down.
Good.
So I'll have to have a talk with Story Point when they come in.
Okay. Good. And then, as I mentioned, your annual report is well written, a lot of information, and I just, as member of the safety committee, I just need to get up to date on some other things. So I'll catch up with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor Council. I really don't have anything to add to my report tonight, unless you would have any questions for me.
Council, any questions?
Well, Kenny, I know that at the Parks and Rec meeting, you mentioned running low on salt. How are we doing?
Ms. Frazier, you're going to answer that question. We're pretty low on salt. However, we are scheduled to get 300 tons sometime this week. So looking at the weather forecast, I think we're going to be fine.
Make it.
I think along those lines, if you've seen the weather in the last few days, they've said that we've already had a little bit more snow this winter than we've had for the entire last 2 winters average. If you take the last 2 winters and average those out, we've had more snow than this winter so far than the average of the last 2 winters.
Then the ice storm we had Sunday, obviously we have to salt everything, so we use quite a bit of salt during that process.
I think that's reflected in not only our salt usage, but I know ODOT came out with some statistics recently, and I think they've already used more salt this winter than they did last
Quite a bit
year
more.
too. So you never can predict. Obviously, we have to take it as it comes, but all this probably means is the price of salt's going to go up next year.
You bet.
But for this year, is it locked in, the price?
Yes.
So, no shortage this year, like previous, that we know of?
Well, it's in the wind that there is. I know down at the docks it's getting pretty low. I don't know just where it's at, but we're
Hopefully
talking
we'll get
about,
ours
yeah.
before it.
There's a lot more snowfall around the country too. It affects all of that. So.
Right. I just remember the price going up and we had a hard time getting it one year. So, any other questions for Mr. Blair?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our communications from council members. Mr. Bruno, we'll start down there.
No report.
Mrs. Bruno?
A couple things. Council had referred the food truck discussion to Parks and Rec, and we discussed it. And there was full support on Parks and Rec committee to find a place for them and let them come and be a part of Waterville, that it would only enhance what we have going on here in our community. So, were you going to contact Mr. Barone, or what's our next steps on that then, in way of?
Does council need to pass anything, or would you like to write it in a, previously we looked at writing something up with the Food Truck Association.
As I recall,
number
they've made presentations and proposals in the past, and I think we put the ball back in their court for the proposal, and they're going location that meets with everybody's okay, so.
That's what they suggested to the Parks and Rec, so it's up to council if we want to allow them on, I believe it's Tuesdays. They're asking to park in, almost said the wrong park, in Conrad Park by the old fire station area, approximately 4 trucks from 5 to 8. So, and I did talk to the people who are renting the old fire station, and they said it would be possible not to be there that evening because they only practice one. We're going to hear from them later, but they're in the audience, but one night a week. So we're asking council, and I don't know if you need that in the form of a motion or if we need to write up. Before we looked at a little contract with them as what would be required, which we probably still have, or they can bring.
I think we tell them we'll work with them Tuesday nights from 5 to 8 in that location, 4 trucks, write it up, get it to us.
Okay.
Saves us money and it makes them put their own thoughts into writing.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for the legal counsel. Does council have any questions on that or comments? I would think it'd be a trial to see how it goes. And the library, they also spoke with the library, the Food Truck Association, and they are happy to have any baseball parking go on at the library as opposed to the food trucks, which was last year's kind of question. So, to keep it separate somewhat.
Good.
So one question the committee did have was, so they pay to come into the city, right, on those days?
They
the
do.
Food trucks?
What do they pay?
They pay Mommy, I believe.
Is it $150 per truck?
As
So
in
they give a
permit.
percentage of
Okay.
the proceeds?
That should be in their proposal then.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to try to monitor a food truck's proceeds or percentage.
That'd be tough.
I think it's a cash business, if you will. We would be better off receiving something similar to Perrysburg and Maumee. They had them get licensed, I believe, and
It's
pay
more like a
X
permit.
amount.
I think it is a permit per truck,
Yeah.
they said.
And
so.
then, we'll want to define the term of the contract. When are they going to be there?
Start,
Or when
right.
they're not going to be there. I know Perrysburg wraps it up with the last farmer's market in October. And it was successful both at Country Charm and then
In the actual
Uptown.
market. Mhm.
Yes.
We'll put that ball in their court, but they did pay something per truck.
Yeah, and they've got both the Perrysburg agreements and the Maumee, so they can pirate whatever they want. I'll get one to make sure they didn't pirate too much.
Okay.
Well, and then further, real quick, then the committee was hoping that the money that was generated from that would come back into the Green Space Fund, the Parks and Rec Fund. Which would make sense, because it's entertainment. It's Parks and Recreation.
I don't think that would be a
I don't
problem.
see any problem with that.
Okay. And then the last thing was, we discussed the hours of operations on our city parks and implementing legislation, I suppose, of changing those hours to close at dark. Is there anything we need to do on that then to make that permanent? So right now, I think it's from dusk.
Is that just noise?
That's
It's,
administrative.
no,
Okay.
it's by ordinance.
Oh, okay, we got it there.
It says till 11 PM. If you do it at dark, of course,
That changes.
we have activities after dark in the parks.
Well, we discussed that, and so we thought, well, if there's ball games going on or tennis going on, if there's, organized activities or, can we write that in the legislation specifically?
Is this,
Well, you're gonna get somebody
Was there a
splitting the
specific
hairs
request?
as to what is organized.
We
Have
have
an
the
organized
basketball
group for
courts.
volleyball or whatever.
right.
Yeah, just let me
And
know
if-
what it is you're looking for, and we'll try to craft
If
something.
someone wants to walk their dog on the trail at Prairie Trail after sundown, they're not gonna be allowed to do that then.
It's lit, that path is lit, right, correct?
No, I don't think Prairie Trail's lit. Bear,
Yeah, so is Prairie Trail.
There are lights
Okay.
on Prairie Trail, not a
Okay.
lot of them, but are they looking for a specific time from the committee, like they want
Yeah,
it
like the Metro Parks, they have signs
Dawn
closes
to
at
dusk.
dark.
well, at
And-
dark, right now we have a specific time, it's 11 PM.
Right.
Yeah,
If you make it dark, it's gonna change every day.
right.
Right, depending on season.
And after
of course.
sunset, then people will not be allowed to be in the parks.
Well, and we were gonna write that, can we at least start implementing some guidelines and let's, you know, filter this out then, what that would look like.
Why don't, if you would, get me the committee's thoughts so we can
Right.
try to put that in, but we can't put something in we're going to enforce selectively. You and your dog find that person I don't like, no, get out of here, or whatever.
Well, this will only help to enhance the safety of our parks. We don't want individuals in our parks at night that don't belong there.
Well, again, how are you gonna make that determination?
Okay, so we'll hammer it back out at committee. All right.
Yeah, if you could put something in writing for it, and have
Okay.
them think about how you will enforce it, particularly with certain groups and parks that have lights. And I know the baseball can go till 10 or 11, which is probably why they came up with the later time, because the games get over at usually 10ish, but it can be 11.
Okay.
So that's why we have automatic on and off lights for Conrad, but you'll have quite a few people in the park during that season.
So Stitt and Waterworks really don't have any organized
A little bit at
anymore, right?
Stitt, but not much. Yeah, they had the younger girls softball there.
At
Well,
night?
Not at night. Well, in the evening, but not late.
And we might look ahead, depending on council's wishes for the new park, how long you wish the activities to go. People to come in town, if it's gonna be a draw for the downtown, I don't think you want something saying they can't come down by the river after dark.
Waterworks no longer has the baseball because they didn't have enough kids in the Awapsa League. So
Right.
that one's already not, plus the flooding, so.
And there's no lights
And there are no lights at Stitt either, but even Waterworks, where there were lights, they're not using it.
Right.
They didn't use it this year, so.
But we still have people in that park at 10:30 and 11 o'clock at night, and I'm just curious as to, you know, is it necessary?
I think it's a good idea if they want to put some things in writing. We can have our legal counsel help us take a look at it, because certain parks are used later in the evening.
Right, I agree.
For good reason.
Right.
Some are not.
Sure.
Right. Right.
Got it. We'll
You
take
might
it back
find
to
out how
committee.
the Metro Parks enforces that too.
Yes.
Well, it's gotta be a tough one. They're much bigger.
No, they just close the gates. You know,
Well, you could
they
walk
have a
down
gate,
there.
so, I mean, you could
You
walk.
couldn't drive in, but you could walk. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm in Otsego Park before it opens and after it closes every day.
Yeah, a lot of the walkers are in those. Yeah. All right. What else do you have from committee?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Alrighty. Next we have Mr. Pedro.
The details are being worked out, but the council and citizens, if you'd like to put down April the 11th is a planned economic development meeting to roundtable, and the details are being formulated, but the overall theme is workforce development and how to obtain or retain workers in our community for some of the employers. So look for more information to follow on that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Pedro. Mrs. Duncan.
No report this evening, Mayor.
All right. And we'll move on to old business. Resolution 51-17 is a resolution approving and adopting the City of Waterville fiscal year 2018 5-year capital planning program for all municipal funds and departments. And our public hearing was held November 27th and of 2017. And I would ask council, they have further comments or
Did we wanna table
motions?
I believe I'd like to make a motion to table this. We have some more information coming in.
I don't think we need to table it, do we? It's still on the table, so
So what do we do?
we can skip it, but yeah.
Skip it?
Yeah. I didn't know if
I'd like
anybody
to
had
skip
any
it.
other, we had made the motion last time about the generator, so I didn't know if there were any other changes tonight. Any comments? So we'd need to pass it at the next,
The next meeting.
Anybody else on the capital?
Changes on the record?
All right, gonna move on down to the ordinance 27-17, an ordinance adopting the annual appropriations for the municipality of Waterville for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, and repealing ordinance number 28-17
and declaring an emergency. First reading held December 11th, 2017. Our second reading public hearing was January 8th, 2018. Our third reading was held January 22nd of 2018. Do we want to wait to pass this one at the same time?
Please.
All right. Any further comments or discussion tonight on it for the administration or each other? No. All right. We'll have those on next meeting's agenda. The next resolution we've already done. Moving on to ordinance 01-18. It's an ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a real estate purchase agreement to sell certain real estate known as 6824 Anthony Wayne Trail, part east of Railroad, and to complete such sale and declaring an emergency. And this is tabled. We would need a motion to bring that off the table.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, and then we would need a motion or discussion.
I would like to just add to honor the wishes of Matt Nagel to follow the procedure. So we'll go one more reading with it unless council has other comments. So I'm in favor of following the normal procedure.
Do we need to rewrite that or just wait until next time would be 3? So,
Well, 3 readings and the emergency are 2 separate things.
right, emergency takes effect right away.
You can read an ordinance 3 separate times, and then the only thing the emergency does is once it's passed, it takes effect immediately instead of 30 days later.
And I think initially why it was put in there was in case the purchaser need to start working on it before 30 days.
Right.
We can also address that at the next meeting, then when it comes up, it can either be brought up as a regular or as an emergency.
Or as an emergency. Okay. All right, so council would like to pass,
This is the sorry, Mayor. This is the second reading tonight?
Yes.
that would be
Technically.
second, technically.
Even though it was on the table, this would be counted as the second reading?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, I'm good with that.
All right, the next meeting, we would have our third reading and have our vote. All right. Ordinance 02-18 is an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Waterville by granting a special use permit to construct a building addition and parking lot modifications at Waterville Primary School, 457 Sycamore Lane. Our first reading was January 22nd. Our second reading is scheduled for February 12th this evening. Our third reading, public hearing, and legislative action scheduled for February 26th. Anybody have any questions on that this evening, discussed at our last meeting? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. And under that, we have a referral to the Planning Commission, Waterville CDC, which is Children's Discovery Center, LLC, change of zoning application for a 2.0 acre parcel south of 8011 Dutch Road from A1 to C1. And Mr. Bagdonis, do you have any information on that for council?
Yes, thank you. We've received an application for rezoning of this 2 acre parcel, and this is directly south of the existing Children's Discovery Center property, and they are interested in purchasing that 2 acres for additional use as part of their Children's Discovery Center. That entire farm field west and south of the Children's Discovery Center is zoned A1, and I believe their purchase of that 2 acres is contingent on the rezoning.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that we refer this to the Planning Commission.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have ordinance 03-18, ordinance amending the municipal zoning map of the city of Waterville to change the zoning classification of a certain 2.0 acre parcel of land, part of parcel number 9625991, located directly south of 8011 Dutch Road from A1 Agricultural District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District. This is our first reading this evening. Second reading is scheduled for February 26th. The third reading, public hearing, and legislative action scheduled for March 12th. And this goes with the referral we just made. This is the same piece of land. Any other comments, Mr. Bagdonis?
Not at this time.
Or council?
Does this have to go through the lot split procedure?
Yes, it would.
Have they already done that, do you know?
No, it has not.
Any other questions on that one? All right. Next, we have ordinance 04-18, ordinance pursuant to Charter Section 5.02, adopting personnel rules, amending various sections of the Waterville Personnel Policy and Procedure Manual, and declaring an emergency. And would you like to give us some more information, Mr. Bagdonis?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Now that we've concluded the three collective bargaining agreements with our two police bargaining units and the one public works bargaining unit, as we do after each set of collective bargaining every 3 years, we look at our personnel policy and make the changes to make that policy that applies to employees that are not in one of the three bargaining units consistent. And so there are some minor changes that are included in this ordinance, such as adding the increments that compensatory time and sick leave can be used, and that would be a quarter hour. Adding language, quote, under the appropriate state of Ohio retirement system, unquote, for the application of payment of accrued but unused sick leave. And then there's some step relatives that were added to the bereavement leave policy. And so this ordinance would amend the personnel policy and procedure manual to incorporate those changes.
All right, I will move that the rules be suspended to allow for the passage of ordinance number 04-18 as an emergency measure, and I will need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Petro?
Yes.
Ms. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Rozak?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Now I'll move for final passage of ordinance number 04-18, first and final reading as an emergency measure, and I'll need a second.
Second.
And is there any further discussion or questions on these few minor changes?
Just to be sure, because I know we talked about this, but the provision that allows elected officials to participate in the health insurance program, does the rest of that provision say that the elected officials have to pay the premium, or is that all?
That's in a separate section where that
section.
is determined.
Okay.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Rozak?
Yes.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Petro?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have Resolution 11-18, a resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into an agreement with the Waterville Play Shop for the lease of the former fire station owned by the municipality at 808 Michigan Avenue. And I know we have a couple representatives here. One is Fitch, if she would want to. Do you want to give any details on how it went this year?
I can.
Okay. I see cars there, but maybe you can fill them in on what's going on.
I'm Tammy Fitch. I live at 1106 Springcrest in Waterville. It has been very nice being in that building. We've done several repairs. Roof has been leaking. Furnace, air conditioner needed repair. We had a sink in the kitchen that decided not to drain. There was roots growing in it. So all of that has been fixed, and we want to stay.
That was good. You started with the fixing first.
Yes, we fixed everything.
That's good.
Oh, and thank you for getting a hold of Kenny to plow, because we had rehearsal on Friday night. And I understand we'll probably be the last one to be plowed, but I just want to know, is it our responsibility for plowing, or is that part of the city's? We'll do whatever.
It's a park drive.
Right.
It's a park.
I think that's ours.
Yeah, it's a public park.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. I didn't know if anybody had any questions for the Play Shop representatives.
Okay, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
I know during Roche Booth, and this was our first year with being in that building, we didn't realize that the parking lot there was going to be parking for vendors. Is there a way that we could be notified? We had a float inside the bay, and thank goodness, just by luck, I told my husband to go park his truck up to where the float was, and then when we arrived on Saturday, there was no parking, and we would have had to have cars towed to get our float out. So the question is there any way we can be notified? And I know that's not you guys, but is there any way we can be notified when that area is going to be used for public parking on events, or do we just read it in the mirror?
I would suggest maybe being part of the planning committee, the Chamber of Commerce, and then they have a committee that handles Roche de Boeuf specifically.
Okay.
So maybe one of your members sit on that committee, possibly?
Okay.
Yeah, or contact them. Yeah, that'd probably be the only day I think that it's used heavily.
Okay.
Baseball goes on in
And we don't have any trouble
June,
with that,
but I
yeah.
think that would be fine.
Because they don't come all the way out. We do have some private citizens that park in that area, which has not been a problem. And then we did have somebody trying to sell their truck in that area. We thought that was a little weird that they would try and sell a private vehicle on city property. So we didn't know if we should call.
Yeah.
or if
Are you
that's
talking
a-
about the area that faces Michigan Avenue?
Right in front of the bay.
Right in, actually right along, parallel with how the fire station sits. If you drive down the lane to go
Okay.
back to the field, they're usually on the right side trying to sell vehicles. In the summer they were, and we're like, that's odd. I don't think a vehicle could park out here for sale, but it's still your property, city property. It was just one of those deals where we said, what do we do? Do we let them sit there? Do we call?
Well, I think the parking spaces are public, but I guess blocking an overhead door is something that should.
Yeah,
be
that would definitely, that was
but-
definitely Roche Day Booth Day, and we do have,
Yeah.
So blocking a door is one issue, but as far as parking there with a for sale sign, I think that's free speech, and you probably can't regulate that unless,
Okay.
unless they park it too long, and we do have limits on the amount of time that a car can park.
it seemed like it was usually in the summer, like Friday to Monday morning. So I'm assuming they came home from work Friday, parked their vehicle, and picked it up Monday. I don't know.
We could look into how long they're there and if it's a
And if it's a
if you
problem.
noticed, if it's a long time.
Because I think it's 72 hours.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we can look it up. But as far as blocking the doors, I agree out front. Yeah, they shouldn't be able to block the doors there
Yeah.
probably for in and out.
If it's not posted, I'd put up a no parking sign on
We
the
thought
door.
about that. We didn't know if we could, just in
No
front of,
overnight.
You
on
can
the
always
doors.
put a
No
sign.
overnight
Well, we should
parking?
probably do that if we're gonna prohibit parking.
Okay.
Just in front, not on the side. but-
Yeah, not on
I
the
think-
side, just on front.
Yeah, you and Kenny can probably get together and we can arrange that.
All right, in light of that, we had a resolution and it would authorize a 2-year lease. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Bagdonis, from the city side?
No.
All right, and the lease was attached.
Are you done with me?
Yes, thank you.
I
Is
just
it
wanna make
2-year or
sure all,
3-year?
oh, go ahead.
Did it say 2?
It's 2.
It's 2?
Yep.
We'll take 3.
All the insurance liability is in place? Liability insurance, are we carrying that, or the,
We would have ours for our activities in the building and grounds. In terms of activities internally, they'd have to have their own liability for participants.
Thought we asked for that. And
Yes.
when you own the building, you have to have it anyway, and they have
Right,
to
we
have
do,
it
I know
too.
we do.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
just wanna make sure it's out there somewhere.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we checked that, so.
Right.
All right, I think it's pretty much the same. The time frame is longer. That's
The
it.
lease is identical except for the term, which is 2 years instead of 1 year.
Right. And I think it is, we've kept that building and it was under debate like 16 years ago what to do with it. And so at least having someone in there that takes care of it is nice for the city and it keeps it nice inside. So the year went well, so. And at the play shop, I don't know if anybody else has used it with them, but they've offered if other people need things occasionally. It's big enough for other people too. All right, so I need a motion.
So moved?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Next, we have Resolution 12-18, a resolution in support of the Board of Lucas County Commissioners to enact a county motor vehicle license fee pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 4504.24. And we had a presentation last meeting from the Lucas County Engineer's Office. And Mr. Bagdonis, did we have any new information?
The only new information is what is attached to the resolution itself. That's some statistical data, not just for Lucas County, but for some other counties.
And so I couldn't tell from the, may I speak, Mayor? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
you may.
It's before the motion, but I
No,
thought
we
I'd
can't.
Yeah, we can go out of order.
Right.
Give your comments
You're out of
first.
order.
Whether the additional $5 would go strictly to maintenance, because they listed a series of new road construction, in this additional information, and my understanding was that the $5 was to maintain the roads, not to build new roads.
Well, I think under the Ohio Revised Code, it doesn't restrict it in that way. It can be used for construction, reconstruction, improvement, maintenance, and repairs. So I would interpret construction as being new roads if they choose to do that.
So would council like to make a motion? Or do further discussion? Is there a timeline that they have on this? The county?
I believe there is, but I think we certainly would be okay if you want to delay it at least one meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to delay it, Lori.
All right, does anybody have a problem if we leave that on the agenda? All right, ask your questions.
If I can have a motion to table it.
Need a motion to table that?
I'll move to table.
A second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Does council have any other information or unscheduled business? Oh, yes. And it was, I have to have the exact amount. Nice try. All right, we have one more. Do I have to do it separately?
Yes. Yeah, 3 seconds.
If I do the whole thing together. At our last meeting, we finished our performance review of our administrator, and so we finished that, and we need to, I will make the motion for a increase for 2018 of 3.75% for our administrator.
Second.
Is there any further discussion from what we had last meeting? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the reminder. Next, we do have another executive session for consideration of personnel issues, Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1, appointment and compensation of public employees or officials. So we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
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 For the reminder. There'll be no further business to, conducted when we return. Thank you for coming. You got me, man. I was upset. I was like, wait, that is not right.
Well, I put it
Good to
with
see you.
the
You can
outrageously
sign
high
it.
numbers so
Yeah.
that you would know.
Did you enjoy your time? We got you in and out pretty quick. You okay?
Good idea.
Or who I am? They can find you on TV.
If you had a lot of fun, you can come back to the
Yeah,
next
it's
meeting.
been a lot of fun.
Put on.
No?
Yeah. Thanks for coming, ladies. Well, you guys took some good notes.
That's 3 meetings now.
You guys have a nice night.
Very serious.
I didn't think if I needed anything.
Yep, lots going on, but I'm sure when it's all